In this video, we are going to talk about mass, the weight, how they are measured, the differences between mass and weight. We also talk about density, how to measure the density of regular objects, also how to measure the density of irregular objects, and then also we talk about the principles, Archimedes principles, and then the law of flotation. The law of flotation. We'll talk about that as well, and then also we will touch on relative density. So let's begin. So mass is the quantity of matter a substance contains. The quantity of matter a substance contains, and then weight is the force of gravity exerted on that mass or the object. So weight is a force of gravity exerted on a mass or an object, and then mass is the quantity of matter that a substance contains. So you understand why when you have something like a sheet of paper in your hand, and then also a stone in your hand, the stone feels heavier than the piece of paper depending because of the mass that it contains. Because the stone has more mass than the paper when it is weighed on a beam balance or any other measuring instrument. Now let's talk about measurement. How is mass measured? So mass is measured by means of a beam balance, a lever balance, a top pan balance, or electronic balance. So these are all balances that can be found in advanced libraries. Not all libraries contain all of this one. They may contain, but not all. But a typical example is beam balance. Beam balance, so to speak, is found in almost all libraries. And then also weight is measured by means of a spring balance. Weight is measured by means of a spring balance. Now let's talk about their differences. Anytime you are required to give differences, compare and contrast between quantities, always try and then table them. So you have and then weight. So one, how do you give the difference? We can give the difference one by their definition. So the first difference is that mass is the quantity of matter contained in a substance, or the quantity of matter a substance contains, whereas weight is the force of gravity exerted on an object. So that's the first point. Two, you can also talk about their unit. So mass is measured in kilogram, whereas weight is measured in Newton. That's point two. Point three, you can talk about how they are measured. So mass is measured by means of a beam balance, whereas weight is measured by means of a spring balance. Now, you can also proceed to talk about their constancy. Mass is constant everywhere. From one planet to the other, it is constant. But weight varies over the surface of the earth and from one planet to the other. For instance, the force of gravity that is exerted on any mass on the moon is about 1.6 meters per second squared. And then the force of gravity that is exerted by the earth on any object on its surface is 9.8 meters per second squared. So let's say I have an object that has a mass of 5 kilograms. Each weight is going to 1.6 multiplied by 1.6 on the moon, and then the same mass is going to have another weight of 9.8 on the earth. So you see the differences. So weight will change from one planet to the other, even over the surface of the, depending on the altitude, because as you go up, gravity decreases. There's a concept that we shall be touching on as the escape velocity, where you get to understand that there's a point where gravity has no influence on an object on its surface. Now let's talk about measurement. Let's talk about area. Now area is the two-dimensional space that an object occupies. So let's take for instance the area of a square or a cylinder. No, let's take the area of a square or a rectangle. So you take the two-dimensional space that square or a rectangle occupies. So it becomes length times length for rectangle, and then also a square, which is equal to length squared. So that's it. That's what you have. And then also this is for square, and then for rectangle will be length times breadth. But then breadth is also measured in length, the same thing. So you also have length square. So that's the area of rectangle and then square. Now let's talk about the area of some other shapes as well, such as a circle. A circle has an area of 2 pi squared. 2 pi squared. A sphere has a surface area of 4 pi r squared. 4 pi r squared. So these are some of the areas of some solid figures. Now let's talk about volume 2, because the moment you add one length, you multiply the area by a length, you get volume. So volume of, let's say, rectangle or a square becomes L times breadth times height, which is equal to L cube. So that's for rectangle or that. And then also we can talk about the volume of some other solid figures, such as a sphere. The volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cube. That's the volume of a sphere. The volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. And then also that is the area of one cross section, which is the circular area multiplied by the height. And then the volume of a cone. The volume of a cone is 1/3 the area of